Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's panel discussion. My name is Aaliyah Pollock, and I'm an AI data and technology analyst at the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors, also known as RICS. For those of you who may not be familiar with ourselves, we're a global professional body that sets standards and provides trusted insight into the built and natural environments. With over 150 years of heritage, RICS represents more than 110,000 chartered surveyors in over 140 countries across the globe. Our members work across all aspects of the property lifecycle, including land, development, real estate, construction, and infrastructure. In the construction sector, our members play an integral role from ensuring projects are delivered on time and within budget to improving the sustainability and efficiency of buildings and infrastructure. In my role at RSS, I'm responsible for analysing the impacts of data and technology across the built and natural environments, ensuring that our profession stays ahead of emerging trends. As part of this, I manage the RICS Tech Partner Programme, which aims to bridge the gap between the surveying profession and tech innovators. The programme explores the use of innovative technologies, and we produce thought leadership content and market insights for the profession. Today, we'll explore how digital tools and technologies are transforming the construction sector, from improving project management to reducing costs and enhancing sustainability. So without further ado, let's introduce our panelists. And Pavlina, I'll start with you.
Yes, thank you. So my name is Pavlina. I'm Architecture, Engineering and Construction Practice Lead at Egnyte. For those who are not familiar with Egnyte, Egnyte is an intelligent content management platform in the cloud, and we serve the built environment industry by providing secure collaboration and data governance platform, again, in the cloud. My role at Egnyte is very much to communicate with customers from that industry and to make sure we translate the language between the construction industry and the software industry. And my background is in construction technologies. I've been in that industry for 8 years now, and I'm really passionate about technologies like AI, but also I'm really an advocate of purposeful implementation of technologies and not just having them for the sake of having a new technology in place.
Great, thank you. Jalpesh?
Yes, thank you. Jalpesh Patel. I am currently a business development manager for Bluebeam and Nemetschek, supporting the infrastructure and public sector markets. Background is structural engineering, practiced for about 6 years before getting onto the software side. Have been doing software for about 6 years as well. A lot of interaction with public sector agencies in terms of workflows holistically, from conceptual design to construction, following through the whole process in terms of how technology plays a role in digitalization. So Bluebeam is a key player in this space, at least in the US, and currently expanding abroad. We played a big role from going to paper to digital, where a lot of the DOTs, state agencies, and the federal agencies were originally, I guess you could say, pre-2000, were all paper-based, and then we have managed to transition a lot of these agencies to be digital through either PDFs, forms, or 3D models. I also have a secondary role at Nemetschek, which is a holistic holding company of multiple AEC platforms, and the main goal for that is open BIM and open standards. So that's something I'm really passionate about. So that's something that we'll focus on in the conversation today as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And last but not least, Bartek.
Hi, my name is Bartek. I'm with Trebbi 3 years now. We're a consultancy and real estate and then construction consultancy. We run projects, we manage costs. Also, recently, we have developed a practice in ESG, which is a big thing in continental Europe now. I don't know how about the island. So that's roughly what we do. We're a big advocate for standardization of data and optimization of data flows, because since we are a consultant, we have very limited power on structuring data on the project. So we're more on the client's side, plus not always on the very beginning of the process. So that's what we do. And my background is almost 20 years, so I think I'm a senior in this company here. As a construction engineer, and I did also some time in design, and I manufactured precast elements, and now 15 years almost in consulting.
Thank you to all of our panelists for their introductions there. So, as we all know, digital transformation is no longer a futuristic concept. It's here, and it's actually starting to reshape how we approach different aspects of construction, from advanced planning tools to AI enhanced project execution. The industry is embracing technologies that offer a lot better outcomes. But while some companies are thriving with these advancements, others are struggling to get pace with the change and integration of challenges. So let's start from hearing our panelists about how this digital shift is making an impact on the ground today. So Pavlina, I'd like to start off with you. In your experience, what is the most significant change that digital transformation is bringing to the construction industry today?
So from my experience, the most significant change that digital transformation brings to construction companies is the access to the data. So through digitalization, we provide companies with the ability to store, share, and access project data in real time from any location. And it's not just for construction companies, but including the whole built environment life cycle and every company involved throughout the construction process. We know that is crucial for our industry because it involves many stakeholders, decision makers throughout every step of the construction process, and allowing them to collaborate seamlessly on a drawing or a BIM model or a contract is really a game changer for the industry, in my opinion, and significantly reduces project delays and is minimizing the rework for construction projects.
Thanks. And Jalpesh, moving across to you, Pavlina touched on there the real power of data in this process. But what do you see as the key challenges construction companies face when adopting digital technologies into their projects?
I think a couple of key factors to account for when implementing technology is scalability when thinking of implementation. So that's something that a lot of these companies struggle with. Pilots are successful on a smaller scale, but thinking larger, how do you share that knowledge across the country has been a challenge coming from the software end, where we have multiple successful pilots. But I think having a strategy in terms of standards and workflows, and then as Pavlina mentioned, data accessibility is key to make sure it spreads across the whole environment. Another factor is training. So there's lack of training as well to scale. So focusing on that is something that we are really priding ourselves in doing when it comes to Bluebeam, where we go out of our way to make sure we're consistently maintaining standards and training standards that can be deployed across agencies and companies, where we're not leaving anyone behind. We're making sure that everything's accessible.
Thanks. And finally, Bartek, moving across to you. So tools like BIM and AI are increasingly being used in construction. How would you say that digital tools like these are being used in construction projects, and where do you see them making the most impact today?
Well, hang on, that's going to be cut. I would like to mention here two perspectives, because on BIM and AI, it's totally different things. BIM is good for standardizing data, since we are talking here a lot about data asset and basically applying algorithms to data. BIM to me, I'm more on the client's end, is a good start for shaping the data into data sets, which can be then used and manipulated with algorithms. BIM as such, now there is a big shift from BIM, like it's very much associated to models, while as actually the data is the value. Well, there is a big struggle, and you mentioned about OpenBIM and all those things on the open end. There is a big shift on how to disconnect the data about the items that they are in the model from the actual geometry, which is heavy. What we see in closed systems like Revit, like Nemetschek, like everything else, it's like they have their proprietary databases, because eventually the file of the BIM model is a database. That is, one is geometry, and the other thing is the whole things, the whole other things that they are kind of connected to your element. And that's a good start. But it actually, I'm a big fan of BIM, like for past 10 years, and I don't see a lot of change, at least in my country now. Okay, architects, they use Revit because it's good for them. It's easy for them to present visualizations. It's quickly, so 2 birds killed with one stone. That's fine. But then when it comes to construction, when it comes further to project management, I don't see a lot of BIM. I don't see people working with models, at least at projects of scale that I'm involved to. Okay, and they are like mass projects, like residential, like warehousing, like PRSS. I'm not saying that BIM wouldn't bring any value to those projects, but for some reason it's not very popular. Why? I don't know. Well, maybe it's something like that's called a small BIM, that is kind of isolated BIM. Designer does his stuff, then the contractor, for example, he rises the model from flat drawings again just to get good builds of quantities and stuff like that, and they don't share. There's no true collaboration as BIM would actually flourish in this situation. Yeah. Okay, we have here suppliers of great platforms that they do facilitate collaborations, but on the client's end, they don't want to pay for that. No, they don't kind of care, and that's when you actually have to manage the process from the very beginning. When the client starts the inception of the project, that's when your first data shows up. Yeah, so it's, I don't know, there's lack of practice, lack of training, like you Jalpesh said. The change, the change is obstacle, maybe the how do you call it? Reluctance to change. Yeah. So there's a stop now. The reluctance to change maybe is an obstacle here. In my country, especially, the lack of standards whatsoever is a big problem. So I see here, so now not to be so negative, I see here a lot of potential for AI, because what AI does good is interpret data. Yeah, so all the things that they are connected to interpret data from what is there in the database to what I do actually need. Because at the moment, we on sites, on the clients end, we do a lot of office work. Yeah, it's very irrelevant to engineering, to design. We just do schedules, we do summaries, we do all those things that guys need to count the money. Basically, that's what the business is about. So we need to make a summary, for example, how many columns were poured during a week every day. Yeah. So what happens? You just go through your diary and you write into Excel every single figure for every single week. Then you post it by email or something like that. Yeah, I call it bio API. For those who know what the API is, the person who does that is actually the connector between the record, the physical record, to the Excel or whatever. Yeah, so that's what I tell to my students from time to time. So the technology is there, but the processes and the people are, well, they are ready or they don't want. It's hard to answer this question, actually.
Thanks. And so continuing to touch on that piece about AI, this year we released our Tech Partner Survey report, which gathers insights from our tech partners to understand the drivers and barriers to the adoption of data and tech. And as expected, the results highlighted AI as the biggest, well, they predicted that AI would be the biggest driver of technology adoption in 2024, showing its transformative potential in reshaping industries like construction. From optimizing workflows and improving decision making to automating repetitive tasks, it's proven to offer great opportunities and potential. However, our survey and previous video discussions also revealed huge barriers to adoption, including misconceptions about AI's capabilities and the need for upskilling and the challenges of integrating AI with existing systems. So let's look at some of the opportunities that AI brings, as well as some of the barriers that the industry must meet to overcome and unlock its full potential. So, Pavlina, starting off with you on this topic, what would you say are the most significant opportunities that AI presents to the construction industry today, and how can companies ensure that they maximize its full potential?
Sure. So in terms of application, I've seen many AI applications on construction sites, like safety measures or performance of the buildings during the operation stage. So we see many different applications of AI in construction at the moment. The one that I can talk about is more towards the content management and the information management. And AI can significantly help us to gain insights on, let's say, past projects or even current projects, on analyzing the data on how the project is going, and give us some suggestions as well, because AI is not a passive analytic tool. It can intelligently give us some suggestions on how to act, what actions we need to take next, and give us some advice, piece of advices on that. So gaining intelligence and insights on project data is a significant benefit that we see from implementing AI tools on top of our construction data. And solving tedious tasks, like let's take building specification document. We know that those documents tend to be very long, very complex. Using AI on such document, we can use like Q&A, we can summarize the document, we can extract information and focus only the information that we need from a building specification document. So in short, I see a lot of time savings when it comes to document or content management, but also gaining insights from past and current projects that we didn't have access to before. And when it comes to how to maximize the benefit of AI, so I think we need to be purposeful on why we are implementing a certain technology, and have and to identify the problem first before we implement the solution. So we know AI is a very trendy word. Everyone wants to have piece of AI on a day, on their daily tasks or their processes. But my advice is like identify the problem first and then look out for solutions. And AI can be one of the tools that help you to solve part of the problem, but AI is not a magic wand that will just come and solve all your problems. So again, I think to maximize, first have a strategy, identify the problem, and then get the most out of the tool that you've chosen.
Thanks. Just a quick follow-up question to that. What is the impact of AI being a buzzword when dealing with clients?
So the impact of that is that many customers come to us or to other software providers and say, oh, do you have AI solution for that? And we have to go back and say, okay, let's see what problem we're solving first, and then see if AI is the right tool for you. Because machine learning and AI, again, they can solve many problems for us, but this is not the leading, it shouldn't be the leading decision-making tool. Like, you don't choose a solution just because they have AI. You choose a solution because they solve a certain problem for you. So I think the impact is that because it's a trendy word, every construction company is looking for something that has an AI in it, which again is not necessarily the effective way to go about.
Thank you. And looking at how AI is being used, Jalpesh, we've spoken previously about how it's being integrated into public sector projects. So looking at this aspect, how would you say that AI can improve efficiency, and what unique challenges exist when applying AI to government-led initiatives?
Yes. So a couple of things when it comes to AI in public sector. It's something that people look forward to. At the same time, they scrutinize as well. Security is a big aspect. Sometimes it's assumed as a black box where something goes in and something comes out, and then you don't know where it comes from. So some of the things that platforms and software vendors have to be considered about is to be transparent and ethical. That's a key focus when it comes to AI at Nemetschek and Bluebeam, is transparency and ethical AI. And what that means is basically when you're implementing AI, what is the backbone of it? Where are the sources that are being utilized to make that decision and provide that answer? So you could think of it as a co-pilot, right? So it's something to facilitate a thought process. And Pavlina mentioned, like, it's something that it's one of the many tools available to you. So again, as a co-pilot, it's a guide that's going to speed up the efficiency. Perfect example would be a document, as she had mentioned earlier, where you have long specifications. If it could quickly go through and pinpoint the exact location in the specification where it addresses the issue that you were looking for, that's something that we could do transparently and ethically, because we're going back to the source. We're not creating an opinion-based AI response. It's more about we were able to process a document in a quickly manner than a human can, and then provide that response in a quick and efficient manner. So that's something that we are focused on when it comes to public sector to make sure that the transparency is there. Another aspect is also security. So when you're running a lot of these data sources through AI, we want to make sure we're maintaining the integrity of that source and we're not sharing that outside of that agency. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to deploy these functionalities locally within networks and servers for these agencies, that it's not being pulled to a holistic global data source, but an independent data source for that agency or a firm. So that's something that we're mindful of as well. And then you had mentioned an example of something like this, correct? So a perfect example here is, again, I work for the public sector and transportation. What overlaps here in the US is a lot of state agencies. State agencies have a lot of standards and specifications in terms of how structures are designed and processed. So ways it's being utilized here is that they're building co-pilots for agencies that can navigate and mine through all the data, publicly available data on their websites that's available to provide quick responses. An example here is there's a big move towards digital delivery. So Texas DOT is a good example that's using AI to facilitate Q&A questions, as Pavlina had mentioned, where it'll navigate through all the Texas DOT specifications published online, and it could quickly provide an answer to a user on their website in terms of what they're looking for. And then it'll also provide the links to the sources in terms of where that's being extracted from. So that'd be hopefully that's something that helps.
Thanks. And Bartek, moving across to you, we've talked about how BIM and AI are being used today, but just taking another look at this, how do you see AI evolving in the future of construction over the next few years? And you've mentioned some of these points, but do you want to expand a bit further on what are the key challenges that need to be addressed to ensure that we're maximizing it to its fullest potential?
When we look at the construction and we go a little bit higher than the project, yeah, we have actually portfolios of projects, yeah, and the market is totally fragmented. Yeah, you have so many contractors, so many clients, so many designers, and projects by definition they're unique. Yeah, and people just come to the project, they deliver it, and they go to another project. Yeah, and sometimes they do a lot of projects at the same time. Yeah, like now let's imagine a construction company. When we look at the platforms here, like Egnyte or Nemetschek or whoever else, I have on one project there is something from Autodesk, the other time is something from Procore, the other times, and there's dozens of them. And especially when we're a consultant, and the client doesn't have a clear strategy on what he wants, and he has like, well, he goes with the flow. For example, the contractor gives him something. On another project, there is OneDrive, for example, and elsewhere there is something else. And for everything, you have to have a separate login. So maybe, okay, now Uncle Google, he sources for you your passwords and everything, but still. But then when you're a contractor and you get your data from different sources, there is a big problem about standardization, because when the client, for example, asks for a design from a designer, and the column in a BIM model or in whatever database, in BOQ or whatever, it can be called in a number of names, okay? And so that's the big problem, because even AI, it may have a problem with interpretation of what do you actually mean. Because let's take, for example, a piping contractor, yeah, and he has a stock of piping, and in his catalog there is thousands of items of different pipes, valves, and other stuff, yeah. And there is a pipe called 100 millimeter diameter pipe, galvanized steel, whatever, yeah. And there comes one BOQ that says 100 mil pipe, whatever, and the other BOQ that says 0.1 M dia pipe, yeah, and they may refer to the very same pipe. And then he has to actually assign the item from his catalog to the project so that he can make a cost and do everything that he needs for accounting reasons, yeah. So that's the major problem, and the contractors, they need to run like double accountings, for one for project, one for their internal ERP systems, and for another one for internal reporting. And I find it hard at this time to see AI helping it very much. I would love to see it. I hope that it will take us there, but at the moment I don't see it. And the other thing is just the simple cost estimates. Yeah, like the holy grail of cost consultants is to be as close as final as the closure cost at the very beginning, yeah, when the project is just a few stains on the paper. And there is a lot of research going on, and it's actually 4 years. And then again, the naming conventions, the structures of your budgets and everything, it's a major challenge for those researchers to put things together so that they know the model then that is being learned, that it knows that it's the same thing, that he can compare one thing to the other. The end of story of the cost consultant is that he takes all project, he looks at the similarities, he applies his guesstimations, and he comes with a figure to the client. Yeah. So, and I think that we still, as consultants, have a few years of way ahead of work ahead.
Thanks for that, Bartek. So let's now move on and look a bit more at data management, which I'd say is the backbone of digital transformation. So our Tech Partner Survey also found that data is the biggest barrier to the adoption of digital technologies across the built natural environments, including construction. Issues such as data quality, transparency, collaboration, standardization, and structured data, like Bartek's mentioned, all hinder the adoption process. And without addressing these challenges, the full potential of tools like AI and BIM cannot be fully realized. So let's explore how organizations can improve their data management practices to support digital transformation and make better use of these technologies. So Pavlina, I'd like to start off with you on this topic. How would you say that companies can ensure that they're managing their data effectively to enable AI and other technologies? And why is structured data so crucial?
Yes, so absolutely. So before we implement AI on top of our data, we need to take a few steps beforehand and make sure our data is in order. And when I say in order, it doesn't necessarily mean perfect data. We will never have perfect data in any world or any time soon. But I'm talking about, first of all, cleaning up the data. And what I mean by that is we need to know and identify where in our data set we have sensitive data, for example. Like, you would be surprised where people are keeping information like credit card details or passport copies and things like that. So identifying this information first, I think, is very important. But then getting rid of duplicated files, for example, or multiple versions of the file, even though we know in construction we work with many versions of the file. But if that's the case, then let's have a folder with the latest version of every document, or have another solution, how the AI would know what is the latest version of the document. So we need to make sure that's in order. And when I say in order, again, it doesn't mean a perfect structure of the file folder, because with using metadata and things like that, AI can find the information even if it's not well organized. But cleaning up the sensitive data and knowing what sort of data we store is very important. Security of the data is something that Jalpesh touched on. People get creative nowadays, and because they want to speed up processes like understanding building specifications or understanding a contract, very often they'll copy and paste a contract in ChatGPT because everyone has access to this tool, which obviously people get creative when they're looking to save time. They get creative on how they use the data, right? For example, let's take a contract or a building specification. They very often will copy and paste that data in, let's say, ChatGPT, because it's open for everyone. Everyone has access to it. So think about how to prevent those things to happen. So one way is to allow our users or our teams to have access to a certified, approved AI tool that help them to streamline those processes without exposing our company data outside the company and posing risks on data leaks and other security issues. Setting permissions also is very important, because imagine if you implement a co-pilot solution and people start asking questions like, how much is the salary of this employee, or really sensitive information. If we don't have our permissions set in advance before we unleash the power of AI on top of our data, this poses a lot of risks again. Standardization is something we talk about a lot, but it's not as easy to achieve as we think it is. However, having some guidance and strategy on how we work with our construction data helps a lot. And the last piece I would add is maintaining, because cleaning up and preparing the data is not one-off exercise. We are all data managers nowadays. We all generate data daily. So the way we keep our house clean and we keep our data standardized and well stored and managed is very important. We are all involved in that process. And again, it's not a one-time exercise.
And looking at some tangible examples of this, Jalpesh, what would you say are some of the most common data pitfalls that you've seen in construction projects, and how can AI be used to mitigate these issues?
Yeah, consistency is a key part of it when it comes to the pitfalls. As I think Bartek had mentioned, if there's no standards, we talk about BIM execution plan, and it's people looking at me weird, like, what is that? But that's like the key component when you're going digital, right? So the pitfall there is, like, if you don't have defined plans, similar to like BIM execution plan or any defined standardization in terms of what data needs to be generated, who's responsible for it, what format it needs to be, what needs to be included, a lot of that has to be laid out initially. And sometimes we jump the gun and we go past that and right into generating data. And when we do that, we have a lot of inconsistency. So what AI can help us do is we could create defined common standards, which majority of the projects can abide by. And then it could try to map that back to that standard. And eventually it could create a culture where people can start realizing the importance of the data they're generating and the importance of having that defined in their protocol or standards ahead of time. So it's basically taking a step back. So because everyone's jumping the gun, it's more about, okay, now can we relate that back to how much better it could be if they were to follow the steps in the way that they should be. So that's something to take a look at. Another big aspect here in the US is open standards we talked about before, but like you have ISO 19650, it's defining the processes. But sometimes the whole team is not going to be educated on a process like that. Maybe AI can take a stab at aligning the data that's being generated and tagging it back to those standards to educate across the project team in terms of the importance of their data and the importance of their data to other team members and the chain effect that it has with it. So those are some examples I could share based on my experience with conversations with these agencies and being utilized in the field.
Thanks, Pavlina.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on this and to share one of the best practices I've seen when it comes to digitizing a process. So I've seen companies that succeed the most in that process is when they approach it as a change management process. So they involve everyone who will be using the tool. At the end, they deliver trainings and they explain the value of using that tool, and they upskill all the employees that will be involved in that process. So I think we should look at digital transformation also as a change management process. And once this is taken as a separate project and as a change management process, I've seen companies succeeding implementing new technologies and digitizing processes.
Great. And Bartek, moving across to you, I think it's interesting because when we look at structured data, AI requires good data to deliver a good output, but also when we're looking at the structure of data, AI can actually help to make that data more structured. So I'm curious to hear, how do you think that AI will change the way in which data is managed and structured in the construction industry?
Again, I think I will move a little bit back to the perspective, because we talk all the time about the project. Yeah, recently I'm more on the organization end of things, and I see how the data from projects, they influence the company policies. So because the company, it's like an isolated environment, yeah, and they can have a little bit of control over what they are doing on the inside. And like I said before, there is a big problem when unstructured or unorganized or uncontrolled data or information, let's call it information for sake of this differentiation, it actually hits the company, and then it has to do something in order to just run the business, to do the internal reporting and do and other stuff, just to draw draw conclusions from past projects. That's the same, because like I said, when you guys actually, Jalpesh and Pavlina, when you refer to company, who do you actually refer to when you say that the company will provide training? Will they provide training to their own staff or to subcontractors, or the client will influence contractor somehow? Because that's the thing that to me brings the biggest challenge. The project is just a temporary thing. Yeah, okay. The huge project, like I don't know, an airport or a railway or something like that. That of course that makes sense to make that effort. Yeah, and often you have the state, that is the investor, that puts the money out. So, and if they are aware of risks, of challenges, then okay, they will make an effort. But in private investments, I find it hard actually to see. So again, I'm more focused on organization, on using data and using automations and AI and everything to improve my own processes to be more competitive. That's it. Yeah, and that's what we use all the technology to, and we actually succeed. Even if we are a small company, we develop our own automatizations. We have automatized our internal processes from sales through delivery, the whole ISO, for example, documentation. We have the ISO 9001 certification. It's all stored in databases. So the audit, the audits, and once a year there's the auditor comes, and the month before there is a headless chicken running around. Yeah, we're making all the documents, all the reports and everything. Yeah, no, we have it. We have everything at just one click. Yeah, so that's how we approach that. If we can use data from the outside to improve our process, that's great, but we don't relate to that. We try to show our way, because we also try to run some pilots that we, for example, standardize data on project to the extent that we can, that it's feasible for us, and connect it to all the Power BIs, all the automations, so that we can show the client semi-automatized reports. Some of them like it and they want to carry on, and that's great. So there's a lot of education actually going on. A lot of experimentation, because we can always say AI. In fact, on the very forefront of AI, there is a lot of experimentation. There's a lot of burnt money on tasks that you don't actually know what is going to be the output, because there's a lot of things going on. Like last night, there was the premiere of a new model of OpenAI, and that's going to cost now $200 per month. So it's like 10 times increase in cost. I wonder if the increase in value is the same. So I think that there is still a lot of hype around that. Yeah. So I just blinked my head before when you were citing this report, because I want to ask if your actual respondents, they were aware of what you mean when you ask AI. Yeah, when they say about AI, because there's still a lot of misunderstandings there. Some say that if you have below 20 ifs in your procedure.
Cool. So yeah, thanks, Bartek. So moving on, I think we've touched on a lot of these points, but I'd like to address this resistance to change that we have in the industry, as ultimately it is the biggest barrier that prevents us from adopting technology. So adopting technology in the construction sector is often met with resistance. While the potential benefits are clear, many companies still hold onto traditional methods. The challenge is not just about the upfront costs or the complexity of these digital tools, but also the mindset and cultural shift needed within organizations. Overcoming this resistance requires careful strategies, effective communication, and strong leadership. So let's look at some of these barriers to adoption and discuss some practical solutions to driving change within the industry. So Pavlina, starting off with you, what would you say are some of the strategies that organizations can use to overcome this resistance to digital transformation, particularly when dealing with the workforce that's used to traditional methods?
Yes, sure. So I touched a bit on this, but to me, the most successful technology adoption comes when we approach it as a change management. And what I mean also by that is, like, we cannot ask every single end user if they like the solution that we are going for, right? However, I'm a big believer that we can put a lot of work in advance before choosing a solution to really understand what is the challenge on the construction side or in the design office before we make that decision. And getting everyone involved in like workshops and those type of sessions to really understand what the pain is. And then once we choose a solution, making sure those people understand the benefit of using it and not just giving them a tablet or a mobile and say, okay, you take pictures now from here, that's it. Let's make sure they understand the time savings, they understand why they're doing it in this new way, in this new process. And and again, it's not a one-time thing, there are new people coming, and we need to make sure we constantly deliver the message and train those people to make sure they understand why this digital way is better than the traditional methods of working. Constant upskill and constant demonstration of the benefits of using those solutions.
And just a follow-up question, how do you really demonstrate those benefits to ensure its successful adoption?
That's a good question. So a demonstration to me is time saving. So an example is like if you have a digital version of your drawing, for example, you can do all your markups or all your comments on the go, and you can collaborate with multiple people at the same time. You don't have to print it out, send it to the office, or scan it, or scan the file in the office and then upload it in a folder so that others can see. It will save lots of time if you do that in a digital way, and we can physically demonstrate the time savings. Another example is taking pictures on construction sites, right? If you have a level of automation on that, like for instance, taking picture on site, and a solution can, let's say, automatically suggest which folder you should put it by identifying your location, like on which project you're currently at. This saves time to then go back to the office, download the pictures, upload them somewhere else, for example. So there are ways to physically demonstrate how we save time using digital solutions. But I think also the collaboration side of it, like, is also very obvious how we can collaborate on the same time on the same file in real time.
So looking at collaboration, but in a different perspective, often collaboration is actually a hindrance to new technology because you need a whole buy-in from the entire workforce and all stakeholders when implementing new technology. So Jalpesh, I'd like to ask you this question. How important would you say that leadership is when it comes down to encouraging new technology adoption, and what steps can leaders take to get the buy-in from the entire workforce to ensure that these technologies are really integrated effectively?
Right. Yes. The leadership plays a really key role when it comes to this change management and adoption of technology. A key thing here that I try to drive when I talk to new customers is iterate fast, fail fast, success fast. If you are hindering that, that's something that's going to drag out something so long that you'll lose interest in your workforce to explore a new technology or a new method. It doesn't have to be technology. It could be anything. Our industry has gone through a lot of change. We went from pen to paper, paper to digital, now digital to 3D models, 3D models to AI and data. And we have progressed along the way. It just took our time, but it's all about iteration and trying fast and making sure we get to where we want to. As long as the leadership team can define criteria in terms of what to explore within, I think that could be beneficial in terms of making sure the resources are allocated in the right space. An example here would be, if you're looking for a document management solution, then you should have criteria and benchmarks in terms of what the leadership team looks at before investing in a solution. So are you looking at time savings? Are you looking at involvement of the team? So in terms of how many people can access that information in a timely manner, and how is that affecting the top line? And then if you can benchmark that and follow that through KPIs, then a team as a whole can see progress. If only a single member is seeing progress, but the rest of the team is not, then you're going to have resistance to change. So it's more about, can we paint a holistic culture around implementing something new in the firm, be it technology or be it a new workflow, but can we be transparent about it? Or is it going to be one-off, hey, I implemented a solution, our team did X times better than the next team? Something like that is something that the leadership team needs to step in and say, okay, no, this is not how we look at change management. It's more of a holistic cultural shift, and how do we impact each other's way of working and the bottom line. So.
Great. And just a follow-up question. Do you have any success stories that you'd be able to share where this resistance to new technologies has been overcome? And what were the key factors that played a role in that success?
Yeah, I mean, recently with the COVID shift in technology, Bluebeam played a key role in terms of changing a lot of the agencies who were still doing paper-based workflows to go digital. As soon as everything was locked down, an example here would be Massachusetts Department of Transportation. Their whole design review process for any civil or infrastructural work took about a month. So you're talking about, you're looking at 30, 60, 90, 100% submittals where you basically have physical copies of drawings printed out and sent to the agency. They'll redline it and then send it back to the consultant to review it and address the comments and then send it back. As soon as COVID hit, that was not possible. So what they did is they put a mandate in place that moving forward, all documents need to go through Bluebeam sessions. It's a collaborative event, place where you upload documents, you comment, you could track who's making those comments, and then you could also hold people accountable. They were able to cut that 1 month process into 15 days. And that in itself was a big impact in terms of the naysayers who were saying, well, no, I don't want to do this in digital. I like my pen and paper. Now they're like, well, I could process 10 times as much project data than I was able to. So they themselves feel more impactful for the organization by processing more information, that then now they're more willing to implement these technologies at other places that they're part of. So I think that's something that can follow into other agencies as well. But a simple task like that, where we can benchmark, okay, we went from 30 days to 15 days. Employee X was processing 4 projects a month. Now they're able to process 16 or 14 projects. That in itself, it's also a motivation for themselves in terms of making improvement in their career path, as well as impact they're making to the agency by utilizing technology. So something like that and structuring it properly can really help get through some of this resistance that we'll face. Again, it's not the solution for everything, but with that mindset of cause and effect and the impact that you're creating not only for the company, but for themselves is also key.
Thanks. And finally, Bartek, with your experience doing construction consultancy, how would you say that you are helping businesses to overcome these challenges related to technology adoption, especially with companies that have limited experience with digital tools?
I just wanted to touch upon what Jalpesh said before about KPIs and everything, and what is important in driving this change. I think that devotion from the top management is also very important because the resistance below, it will be basically will start, and it will get stronger when people see that people on top are not really devoted to that. That is actually optional, yeah. And then so I will do it the way I did it before, yeah. And in general, the whole change in construction, you all know, we talk about BIM here, so you all know this famous graph of increase of productivity in construction, yeah, that everyone is spiking and we're flat for whatever you want, 50, 30, whatever you get, which book shows you that it started in the 50s, and actually it started before, a few centuries probably. So we still built in a way that they were erecting our cathedrals. That's quite funny actually, but that's how it is. So when people see it's optional, then they will resist it. And that's, in my personal opinion, it's not only down to technology, it's down to every single change that you want to implement in construction. There's another thing to that, because construction is very kind of secret. Yeah, you said about data protection. You don't want to send your contract to ChatGPT. By the way, why? Because I don't think that some Altman is going to read it or something. And if someone will check it in between, that's it actually your fault because you let your basically, that's what we said before on our initial meeting, that you're the biggest risk to the data security. I don't think that the model will read and will conclude anything from this contract. Yeah. So when people sometimes tell me that they make corporate ban on using ChatGPT, the question is it a bigger hurt for the company or not? Because then they actually prevent people from getting new experience with technology. let's say that they will like it and they will use it and they will be more efficient or whatever. Yeah, but you touched on Copilot. Okay, it's more corporate, but I used Copilot for a couple of weeks. Not a big fan. So maybe not too long. Yeah. Although I'm a big fan of Microsoft 365 and we run the company on Microsoft 365, and thus when you talk about, sorry, to touch upon the change in the construction is very hard to research because of all this secrecy and all the uniqueness of the projects. You don't find a reliable data sets and consistency, and you can't draw conclusions into that this practice is good, this practice is not good. Yeah, while as IT and all the mass production, they have solved most of the problems that we are still struggling with. Yeah, about data standardization, about itemizing, and everything else. So I think that we are a little bit behind because we kind of hard to study. That's how I think. Even if you have two identical projects, you have different teams, different weather conditions, different everything. So it's when you say, I have adopted this practice in this project and it gave me that, and they say, yeah, but there was a storm. Yeah. So you're basically in social sciences, you assume the ceteris paribus thing, yeah, that everything is constant. You just adopt one change and everything else is constant. While in projects, it is not. So that's this long story here. And coming back to how we help, we basically lead by example. Yeah, we try to show that it's worth it, and that's it. That's what we can do. And also on the inside of the company, I've seen that we're not that big company, and there was commitment from the top management, from the owners, that they want to change stuff because they saw opportunity to get their processes better, and that's what happened. And I remember that after a year of my activities in the company, one of the guys who was initially objecting, he said, well, I was skeptical, but now I can't imagine life without it. Yeah. So I think that's good enough.
So thanks, Bartek. I'd like to just move on to our last topic about sustainability. So as the construction industry increasingly focuses on sustainability, digital tools are becoming essential in reducing carbon footprints and improving environmental practices. Here at RICS, we've developed the Whole Life Carbon Assessment Standard, which helps professionals to manage carbon emissions throughout a project's life cycle, all the way from initial design all the way to demolition. This includes assessing embodied, operational, and user carbon, providing valuable insights for decision making. However, while digital tools offer significant opportunities to track and reduce carbon emissions, the adoption of these technologies still faces some huge challenges. So let's just quickly run through how digital tools and AI are supporting our sustainability goals, as well as the barriers to their adoption, so that we can really assess how they are transforming the way that we approach environmental impact. So Jalpesh, I'd start off with you on this topic, if that's okay. So in your experience, how would you say that public sector organizations are using technology to support sustainability goals, and what role does AI play in tracking the environmental impact of these projects?
So sustainability is a key factor when it comes to public sector, especially with the initiatives that we have placed in terms of going carbon neutral or carbon zero, I guess you could say, zero emissions by 2050. And the biggest component is infrastructure, where majority of the material is used as concrete, which embodies a lot of carbon. So we kind of want to be mindful in terms of the effects that it has long-term in terms of overall embodied carbon. So I think the key thing here is majority of the infrastructure was built almost 50 years ago. And in the life cycle of those structures was about 50 years. So we're at the end of life on that. But unfortunately, we don't have the funding or the material or the resources to reconstruct everything from scratch. So now the goal here is, can we prolong the life cycle of that structure? And in doing so, how much more carbon emissions are we embedding into these projects or into these structures? And to do those calculations is difficult because most of the technology and the resources used are from back in the day where the data is obscured. So it's more about, can we use AI to navigate these as-built drawings or data sets that are available within our data sources to have a better understanding of how they relate to the current requirements that we have put in place, and we normalize that effect. So again, that's an idea of AI. I haven't heard about anyone using something like that. But again, this is an opinion based on my experience in the industry in terms of ways we could utilize this technology in this space. In terms of use ESG and AI in the future for construction, funding has been a big issue when it comes to the infrastructure world. So what we're trying to do here is we're getting a lot of private funding being partner up with the public funding. And a lot of the private funding is being tied back to ESG goals because these firms have goals that they have to report up to the shareholders where they trade in the market. So for them to deploy their funds and making sure they're aligned with the criteria that they have holistically for the firm, the state agencies and the public sector need to report back to these privately funded entities in terms of how the funds are being deployed. So I think the goal here is that ESG will always play a key role in public sector because of the added value that the private side brings in terms of funding. It's just that we need more solutions to figure out how best to do it.
Thanks.
Hopefully that helps. It wasn't direct,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Don't worry. Thanks. And Bartek, moving across to you, what role would you say that digital tools like BIM play in reducing carbon footprints during both the design and construction phases of a project?
Thanks for that. Well, let me start with that. It's only been not that long in Poland that there is any focus on carbon footprint. Hence, we don't have a lot of standards on that. Again, surprise, surprise. What Trebbi has during this year, we've seen a bigger and bigger interest from our clients in carbon footprint reduction topics. And again, we see the problems with no standards, and we have issued our own guideline based on RICS, actually, guideline that you mentioned before, on how to communicate the data needs from the client to contractor, how to report, because if you have no standards, you can ask, you can have different scope of reporting, yeah, because carbon footprint it's not just one figure, okay? You have to say many assumptions of what you count into, and it is especially important when you start to market your benchmarks, yeah, like we have reduced our carbon footprint per square meter from that to that, yeah, and then I wonder what you didn't count, yeah, or what did you count, or this kind of things. So from mathematical point of view, carbon footprint calculation is just like it's like budgeting, okay, except your currency is much more vague because there is a big problem with data accessibility. Not every material has a data sheet for carbon emissions. So then there is, of course, there is a standard for that, and it tells you that if you don't have data emissions for particular element, then you look for something similar, then you look for something similar in your country, then you look for something similar in your continent, and so on and so forth. And then there is a question if your consultant actually didn't make mistake and mix any the material from like windows from aluminium to plastic, for example. There's a huge difference, you wouldn't say. So from that point of view, the role of BIM is the same as with finance. You can review more options in a shorter time, yeah, and then there's the same challenge. You don't model everything that you calculate in your budget, and it's the same. You have emissions in things that they are not in your model. So then again, like Jalpesh said, the heaviest emission is with concrete, with steel, but still, when you look at the LCA, the life cycle assessment calculation, the construction emissions is 20% actually, guys. So if we will scrub a little bit on concrete, let's say 5%, and well, let's say that it's 5-ish%. So then, is it actually worth to fight for? Yeah, to me, the whole thing is about like good engineering, good and proper, long-lasting materials, and good plant that you won't need to exchange it in 5 years, because that's where the emissions come from. Yeah, this 80% is from electricity. So you want to have efficient plant and efficient heating and efficient air cooling wherever you are in the world. and then you don't want to exchange it all the time. Okay, so the good engineering, in my opinion, is the key factor to reduction of carbon footprint. And then if you want to feel better, then you can calculate it. Okay, I could add upon this carbon footprint this a little story that I experienced actually 2 years ago when I was running a panel discussion on green building. And there was the problem with concrete is that we have now zero emission concretes. Okay, the problem is that they are. How do you get zero emission concrete? Zero emission concrete is made of, instead of cement, part of cement is exchanged to ashes. What happens then? The hydration temperature is actually lower, so the concrete cures longer. So on this panel, I had a guy from construction company and from manufacturer, and of course they had this green concrete and everything. And then on the offline, the guy from the construction company says, okay, he has zero emission concrete. I have to heat it in winter. I have to store it longer in my shutters. So the physics, the building is about getting the certain amount of energy into the one place, and then we have a building. Okay, so it's physics. You calculate here and you miss it there. So again,
Right.
good engineering.
Okay, great, thanks. So that's all we'll have time for today, but a huge thank you to our panelists for sharing such valuable insights, and thank you for everyone who joined in and listened to us today. It's clear that digital transformation, AI, and better data management are shaping the future of construction. At RICS, we're committed to helping our members navigate these challenges and stay ahead of this curve. So it's an exciting opportunity for the industry, and technology is a huge part of that. If you have any questions or would like to discuss any of today's topics further, then don't hesitate to get in touch. Thanks again for being here, and I hope that you enjoyed the discussion.